Ukamaka grew up knowing only hardship. Her parents passed away when she was just 14, leaving her to fend for herself. With no one to care for her, she found work as a maid for families in the nearby city of Onitsha. Life was never easy, but Ukamaka had a strong spirit and never let her misfortune dim her smile. By the time she turned 24, Ukamaka was employed in the grand house of Mr. Obiora, a wealthy and influential businessman. Mr. Obiora was known for his temper and his stern nature. He was a melancholy, and that made him a perfectionist, never wanting any form of mistake from his workers. Many maids had come and gone from his household, leaving only a few, unable to endure his grumpiness and high expectations. But Ukamaka was determined to stay. She needed the money to support herself, as she dreamt of going to the university. Mr. Obiora was a widower, with a 6 years old daughter who was named after his wife, Adora. The child was the light of his life. Ada, much like her melancholy father, was grumpy and difficult to please. She missed her late mother deeply and often expressed her sadness through tantrums and coldness towards the staffs, especially her nannies, whereby making it difficult to retain her nannies as they eventually quit or get sacked. Despite this, Ukamaka's gentle nature and patience eventually melted Ada's defenses. She treated Ada with so much care, telling her stories, braiding her hair, and even singing lullabies whenever Ada had trouble sleeping. From the first day Ukamaka arrived at the mansion, she was struck by Sir Obiora's commanding presence. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with sharp features and neatly trimmed beards. Despite his gruff demeanor, there was an air of dignity and strength about him that made him undeniably handsome. Ukamaka couldn't help but admire him from afar. Though she kept her feelings hidden, she often found herself blushing whenever he spoke to her, even if it was in his grumpy tone. Sir Obiora's stern nature was rooted in a deep tragedy. Years ago, he had been married to Adora, his one true love. Adora was beautiful, kind, and the only person who had ever truly understood him. They had built a life together, filled with love and laughter. But that happiness was cut short when Adora fell gravely ill. Despite seeking the best medical care, Sir Obiora had been unable to save her. Her death left him devastated and bitter, turning his once warm heart into a fortress of anger and pain. In the years following Adora's death, many women tried to capture Sir Obiora's attention. His wealth and status made him one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. Women of all ages and backgrounds threw themselves at him, attending his business events uninvited, sending lavish gifts, and even showing up at his mansion unannounced. But Sir Obiora remained indifferent to their advances. He couldn't imagine loving anyone else after Adora. Ukamaka's presence in the household began to change things. Unlike the other staffs, she never seemed intimidated by Sir Obiora's temper. She did her work diligently, often going above and beyond to ensure the household ran smoothly. Her kindness extended not just to Ada, but to everyone around her, from the gatekeeper to the gardener. Sir Obiora noticed her attention to details and her unwavering patience, especially when dealing with Ada's tantrums. Ada, who had been cold and distant towards every maid before Ukamaka, started warming up to her. Ukamaka's soothing voice and genuine affection broke through the little girl's wall. Ada began seeking Ukamaka's company, following her around the house and even demanding that Ukamaka be the one to put her to bed. For the first time in years, Sir Obiora saw his daughter smile and laugh. It was a sight he had not thought possible since Adora's death. Ukamaka bond with Ada didn't go unnoticed by Sir Obiora. He often found himself observing them from a distance, his heart softening as he watched Ukamaka read stories to Ada or patiently teach her how to draw. There was something about Ukamaka's presence that brought a sense of peace to the household, a warmth that had been missing for so long. Sir Obiora began to see Ukamaka in a new light. It wasn't just her physical beauty, though her smooth dark skin, bright eyes and graceful demeanour were hard to ignore. It was her inner qualities that captivated him. She was hardworking, resilient and selfless. Despite her difficult past, she carried herself with dignity and grace. Her kindness was genuine, not calculated, and she treated everyone with respect, regardless of their status. Ukamaka's ability to connect with Ada was another factor that drew him in. She had succeeded where so many others had failed, becoming a maternal figure to his daughter without ever overstepping boundaries. She understood Ada's grief and handled it with patience and love, helping the little girl heal in ways Sir Obiora had not been able to. One evening, Sir Obiora found himself sitting in his study, replaying moments he had shared with Ukamaka in his mind. He remembered the time she had stayed up all night nursing him back to health when he had a fever, her hands cool against his burning forehead. He thought of the way she laughed softly when Ada said something funny, a sound that seemed to light up the room. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope, a possibility of opening his heart again. As Ukamaka grew closer to Sir Obiora, jealousy brewed among the staffs. One of the senior staff, Ifeoma, began spreading malicious rumor. She's only pretending to care about Sir Obiora to take his money, she whispered to anyone who would listen. But Ifeoma envy didn't stop there. One evening she planted an expensive watch from Sir Obiora's collection into Ukamaka's bag. The next morning, Sir Obiora started looking for the wristwatch, and Ifeoma suggested to Sir Obiora that everyone's bags should be searched. He agreed and did as Ifeoma told him. Unfortunately, the watch was seen in Ukamaka's bag. When the watch was found in her possession, Ukamaka's heart sank. "Sir, I didn't take it," she pleaded. "I swear, I don't know how it got there." Sir Obiora's eyes narrowed. He wanted to believe her, but the evidence was damning. Just as he was about to dismiss her, little Ada stepped forward. "Daddy, I saw Auntie Ifeoma put the watch in Ukamaka's bag," she said innocently. The truth shattered the tension. Sir Obiora immediately fired Ifeoma, and guilt overwhelmed him. "I'm sorry, Ukamaka. I should have trusted you," he said, his voice heavy with regret. One evening, Sir Obiora fell seriously ill. Ukamaka stayed by his side, nursing him back to health. She cooked his meal, ensured he took his medicines, and even read to him when he was too weak to get out of bed. During those moments, their bond deepened. "Why do you care so much?" he asked one night, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because you are not as bad as you pretend to be," she replied with a small smile. When Sir Obiora recovered, he realized he could no longer deny his feelings for Ukamaka. She was no longer just his maid. She was his savior, his confidant, and the one who had brought joy back into his life. But their growing closeness sparked gossip among the staffs and even the community. One sunny afternoon, he called Ukamaka into his study. "Ukamaka, I have something to ask you," he began, his voice unusually gentle. "I know this may sound strange, but I will go direct to the point. Will you marry me?" Ukamaka's eyes widened in shock. "Marry you, sir? But I'm just a maid." "You are much more than that. You are the only one who have ever cared for me without expecting anything in return. You've shown me what true kindness is," he said earnestly. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, yes, sir, I will marry you." Sir Obiora marrying a maid? It's unheard of, people whispered. Sir Obiora didn't care. He was a man who made his own decision. Their wedding was simple but beautiful, attended by close friends and families. Despite the initial backlash, their love story became an inspiration to many. Ukamaka used her new position to help other girls in the village, ensuring they had opportunities to build better lives. Sir Obiora, once known for his grumpiness, became a softer, more compassionate man. Together, they built a life filled with love, respect, and mutual understanding. Little Ada, overjoyed to have Ukamaka as her stepmother, became even more cheerful. Ukamaka's journey from a struggling maid to a cherished wife proved that love could overcome any obstacle and that kindness could melt even the hardest of hearts.